now available in paperback and Kindle Unlimited. The Man Crisis. Learn why so many men are struggling to find their way in an increasingly gynocentric world in The Man Crisis. Get your copy of The Man Crisis in paperback and Kindle Unlimited today. An off-duty Alaska Airlines pilot allegedly tried to crash a plane he was flying on.
An off-duty pilot riding in a plane's cockpit is now in custody after allegedly trying to turn off the engine of an Alaska Airlines flight while it was midair on Sunday.
I'll give you a heads up. We've got the guy that tried to shut the engines down out of the cockpit, and he doesn't sound like he's causing any issue in the back right now. I think he's subdued. Other than that, yeah, we warn law enforcement as soon as we get on the ground and park.
That was audio of a pilot confirming the suspect had been successfully subdued. 44-year-old Joseph David Emerson is facing 167 counts, including 89 counts of attempted murder. Alaska Airlines says the suspect was traveling in the flight deck jump seat for auxiliary passengers when he, quote, unsuccessfully attempted to disrupt the operations of the engines yesterday. The plane was en route from Washington State to San Francisco, but was diverted to Portland. Local law enforcement and the FBI are investigating the incident.
Now, in this alleged incident that took place on Horizon Air Flight 2059 from Everett, Washington to San Francisco, off-duty Alaska Airlines pilot Joseph Emerson was sitting in the jump seat in the cockpit of the plane. And as he was sitting in the cockpit of the plane, he was allegedly under the influence of magic mushrooms. And as he was under the influence of these mushrooms, he allegedly went to grab the fire suppression handles at the top of the cockpit. And as a result of this led to the plane having a momentary interruption of fuel, and this almost led to the plane winding up crashing, if not for the actions of the pilots to restrain Joseph Emerson and go out here and keep the plane continuing to maintain its altitude in the air. Now, after Joseph Emerson had this incident in the plane, he was kicked out of the cockpit and handcuffed to a seat where the plane wound up diverting its flight from San Francisco and diverted to Portland for an emergency landing, where Joseph Emerson was arrested and was booked on federal charges for interfering with a flight crew, along with 83 attempted murder charges from the state. Now, the FBI sees Joseph Emerson's alleged actions as an isolated incident, but when I take a critical examination of Joseph Emerson's alleged actions on that plane, they fit the pattern and profile for beta males that I talk about in my book, The Man Crisis. And it's clear to me that Joseph Emerson was a man in crisis due to the dysfunctional policies of his job and also the impulsive behavior that he wound up participating in before he got on this flight. Now, Joseph Emerson allegedly had been awake for over 40 hours, and as he was awake for over 40 hours, he decided to go out here and take some magic mushrooms, and as he took these magic mushrooms, he was, I believe, looking to escape the stresses of his job as a pilot. And as he was looking to escape the stresses of his job as a pilot, this is what led to him taking these drugs, and this is something that beta males like to do whenever they're feeling overwhelmed and frustrated about a job or a situation that they feel is beyond their control. Because in the chapter in The Man Crisis, I talk about addiction and the man crisis, and oftentimes individuals, when they are feeling stressed and overwhelmed, what they do to escape those stresses is they go out here and look to escape through taking substances like magic mushrooms. And as Joseph Emerson participated in this impulsive behavior, he was not thinking critically about his job or the safety of the 83 individuals who were on that plane with him, along with his fellow crew members. And because he wasn't thinking critically about their health and safety and his own safety, he decided to go sit in the jump seat to get to whatever location he was looking to go to as related to his destination. And even though he was impaired by these drugs, he still sat in that jump seat in the cockpit. And as he sat in that jump seat in the cockpit, this is where Joseph Emerson decided to allegedly participate in actions that he believed were a part of a so-called dream. And as he participated in those actions, he went to reach for the fire suppression handles in the cockpit and hoped to be able to escape the dream. But the thing I believe he wanted to escape from was the stresses of this job, and went out here and impulsively participated in the subconscious actions in the conscious world. And as he participated in these subconscious actions in the conscious world, this is what led to the plane having its fuel cut off and the plane almost going into a decline. But thankfully, the pilots who were on board were able to subdue Joseph Emerson before his alleged actions led to a tragedy that could have cost the lives of all of those on board and possibly those on the ground. So this entire incident is one where a male wound up putting a lot of lives in jeopardy because of his just completely dysfunctional situation as related to his personal life. Now, Joseph Emerson in one article claims that he took these drugs because of the passing of a best friend who had died 6 years ago. And in another report, it says that he was inebriated with these mushrooms because, again, of the 40 hours he had been sleeping. But the decision to take those drugs are the kind of behaviors that, again, beta males participate in, because when a beta male is overwhelmed by a problem, they don't know how to go out here and think critically or conflict resolve. And this is exacerbated when these individuals go for extended periods of time without sleep. Now, the average human being needs 8 hours of sleep in order to function, and this is where I believe that the airline, Alaska Airlines, is partially culpable as related to Joseph Emerson's actions, because the way this man was scheduled possibly was one of the reasons for his impulsive behavior, because the average person needs sleep. Unfortunately, here in America, because we have not invested in men, we have a shortage of pilots. And because we have a shortage of pilots, we have men like Joseph Emerson put on the road to becoming men in crisis, because they are made to work a lot of hours more than they should. And because these men are made to work more hours than they should without proper rest, this impairs these individuals' behavior, and it impairs their behavior where they wind up making decisions as related to being impulsive, like taking these psychedelic magic mushrooms. Because an individual like Joseph Emerson, again, in a healthy workplace, would have staff to relieve him so he wouldn't be out here working these long hours. Unfortunately, because corporate America did not want to invest in men, but decided to invest in women, we do not have skilled individuals like pilots to go out here and be able to relieve pilots when they are tired. And a sleep-deprived individual is almost the same as a drunk driver, or the same as a drunk individual. I know this because I've had extended periods without sleep, and you become extremely erratic when you don't get sleep. So this man was on the road, possibly, I believe, to becoming a man in crisis due to the fact that his employer did not look out for him and did not invest in giving this man the proper time to get the rest that he needed between flights in order to effectively do his job. So that's where I believe the airline is partially culpable to this man becoming a man in crisis. I believe that part of this has to do with the airlines and their cheapness, and also with the lack of investment in men. This is what leads to this man becoming, again, erratic to the point where he wound up acting impulsively. The other part has to do with this individual looking to escape the problems of his life and looking to escape the problems of his life by going to drugs. Because a lot of times with beta males, because they do not know how to conflict resolve, do not know how to problem solve, what happens with these individuals is because they feel like they cannot solve problems by confronting people, or they are averse to conflict. What they do is go out here and start taking drugs to escape the problem. Now, this problem, I believe, could have easily been solved had he been able to go to his supervisors and tell them, hey, I haven't slept in 40 hours, which is basically an entire week for people, and not sleeping in 40 hours, again, his whole judgment is impaired, and any good supervisor worth their salt would have said, okay, you need a rest break. You need to take a rest break before you impact the health and safety of people in the air. And any critical thinking employer, they would have gone out here and do this. But unfortunately, there was nobody to do this for Joseph Emerson. And that's where this man wound up on the road to becoming a man in crisis who put everybody's life in crisis in the cockpit of that plane and put people's lives in jeopardy in that plane, because as he was impaired by these drugs, this is what led to him, again, being impaired by the drugs and being impaired by lack of sleep, acting impulsively, and the consequences of this could have been the deaths of everyone on that plane, including Joseph Emerson. So this situation just shows how dangerous the man crisis can be when people refuse to acknowledge the man crisis in this country. And clearly, we do have a man crisis in this country as related to not only violent incidents, we also have a man crisis due to our workplace not going out here and investing in men. And Joseph Emerson's case shows us what happens when we don't invest in men. The few men who are skilled in certain high-risk jobs are made to work longer hours, and as they're made to work longer hours, these men basically are burnt out to the point where they don't get any rest, and when they don't get any rest, they are made to work twice as hard, and that puts people's lives in jeopardy when they are working in high-risk jobs like airline pilots. And this is, again, a direct result of us not investing in our men, in our society, and our communities to go out here and replace the people who are out here on these jobs, or provide them with relief so that they can go out here and get the rest that they need. Many of our workers need their rest. Unfortunately, because we invest heavily in women and not in men, we don't have those skilled individuals to be able to provide that relief for those men. And this is what led to this man winding up becoming a man in crisis, and this man in crisis creating a crisis in the air, a crisis in the air that could have been easily averted. But unfortunately, the management of Alaska Airlines didn't invest in their men, and this is what led to a dangerous situation that led to this man in crisis being in the cockpit. And this entire situation is, again, deeply sad, because we have a pilot who, again, acted impulsively, and now that he's acted impulsively, he's gone from having a promising career as a pilot and is now on the road to possibly becoming an inmate inside of a federal penitentiary, where he will not be dealing with sexy airline stewardesses offering him snacks. No, he will be traded for snacks by Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, Big Dave, Melvin, and Mr. Sprinkles, and traded for Little Debbie snack cakes, ramen noodles, packets of Crystal Light tea, packets of Crystal Light lemonade, Taster's Choice coffee, off-brand lemon cookies, off-brand Oreo cookies, snack pack puddings, Kit Kat candy bars, Butterfingers, Fritos chips. I mean, he's going to basically go from being a guy up in the air flirting with stewardesses to being flirted by Mr. Sprinkles, who'll be looking to spray his special sauce on the backside of this man, who will lament the day he went in the air, created a scare, and now he's in a place where he's just on a tear, running away from Mr. Sprinkles, Bubba, Tiny, Roscoe, and Big Dave. But sadly, this is the road that happens to many males who wind up on the road to becoming men in crisis. And I do believe that Joseph Emerson does have a case as related to his employer abusing him, and he should go to his union to deal with this whole situation, because he's basically, again, had his entire life messed up, all because of mismanagement. So I look at this whole situation, and again, it's a sad case of a man in crisis, a man who went from being a pilot in the air to a man who is scared of winding up in prison for the rest of his life for interfering with a flight crew, which is a serious federal charge. And this serious federal charge has led to this man, who was a respected pilot, becoming a man in crisis. Now, you have some who want to say that this is a mental health issue, but I don't believe it's a mental health issue at all. I believe this has to do with overworking a man, and when you overwork a man and make him to the point where he becomes erratic, this happens because of the policies and procedures of that airline, and that's why I believe the airline is culpable here as related to this man being a man in crisis. And this is also because many beta males fear conflict. They fear talking back to employers. They fear that they will be fired or written up. But sometimes you just have to stand up for yourself as a man. Say, hey, I'm not feeling well. This is all part of a man's health. A man does need to rest for 8 hours. A man needs to go get his sleep. A man needs to get proper meals. This is all part of a healthy workplace. And I believe what happened here to lead to this, again, man being in crisis, was he didn't get the support that he needed on his job. And that's basically what put all those people's lives in jeopardy as this entire situation on this plane. I believe what happened here is that a man who was overworked was put in a situation where he felt like the only way he could escape was through these drugs, and that's what put this entire crew in jeopardy and all of the passengers in jeopardy. This whole situation, again, has to do with the way we go out here and, one, raise boys to become men, and two, the way we do work in America, because part of the way we do work in America puts our men who are skilled in crisis, and the way we go out here and have men working works them to death. And this guy being worked to death almost put an entire plane of people to jeopardy of dying, and that's why we need to go out here and work on solutions to our man crisis. What we need to do is go out here and start investing in men so that they don't wind up creating situations that people put people's lives in jeopardy and make them as men who are winding up in crisis. Now, if you want to learn more about the dysfunctional behavior that leads to a guy winding up thinking he needs to escape through drugs, or the other dysfunctional behaviors that beta males participate in, you can pick up my book, The Man Crisis, on Amazon.com in paperback and Kindle format. You can also find The Man Crisis at other online booksellers like Smashwords, the iBookstore, Google Play, and Barnes & Noble. And if you want to see me make more videos about men in crisis, you can send a donation to the Patreon, the PayPal, or the Cash App by clicking the links in the description box. That's all I have to say for this video. You can comment, rate, and subscribe. Now available for the first time in paperback. Stop Simping in the Workplace. Men, learn what you need to know in order to protect your job from workplace predators with Stop Simping in the Workplace. Available in paperback at online booksellers everywhere. Support Black-owned and Black-operated digital broadcast media. www.niceradionetwork.com. Nice Radio Network, broadcasting 24 hours a day, 7 days a week.